Okay, so we have this display text, which is working fine. Now I want to add our objective text. So we will create something similar to this display text, but when we press tab, for example, it will show as the objective that we have. So let's hop back to BP main UI, to WB main UI, and let's go back to designer. So let's just grab size box as always. Let's move it somewhere around here because I want this objective to be displayed in the top left corner. So that's where we can anchor it, and this is anchored by default to the left top corner, so we don't need to change anything. The only change I will do is in the position. So it will be positioned 100 in the X and 150 on the Y. It will be displayed somewhere around here. And as for the size X, we can go as far as 300. And also, before I forget, let's set this as a variable and call this objective. And we can add our text now. So let's just grab text, move it here. Okay. And again, I would like to change this from bold to light, as it just looks nicer in my opinion. And as for the text, we will just link this to a function. So let's create a binding. This can be named getText. Okay, it makes sense for me. So what do I want to display here? By default, I want to display here how many pages we've collected so far. So in order to do that, we can just get player reference, which we have set up here. We can get game mode reference. From here, we can just make sure if it is valid, just to be sure we will have no errors. And if it is valid, I want to get total pages, and get pages left. And we will use these two variables to display a text. So we can just grab this and say format text. So this format text is actually really useful, and I will show you how this works. In this little type box here, we can format our text. And I will show you a really simple but useful example. We can just type the beginning of our text like pages found. Okay, so I want to display pages found first, then I will create a space. And now we need to type these two brackets, and inside here we can type A. And what it will do is it will create an input, as you can see. So this A in this brackets will be replaced with anything we plug into A. So I just want to display pages found, for example, 8 out of 8. So we need two inputs. We have this A right here, but I will create this slash and then I will create B. So now we have A and B inputs. So this B will be our total pages. We can connect this right here, and this B will be, and this B value will get replaced with this total pages. And as for the A, we want to know how many pages we've collected so far and not how many pages are left. So we can just grab our total pages and subtract our pages left. And we can connect this to A. So it will properly display how many pages we've collected. Now we can hit compile and this function should work. This text now will be replaced with pages found and these two inputs that we've set up. And same thing as we did with the size box for our text, for our info text, we want to add some animation to this objective text. So let's just click animation, create a new animation, and we can call this objective animation. And we will add this objective, which is our size box. Okay. Oh, animation here. So I will click plus because we want to track our render opacity. We will also make this 1 second long. Here we will create another keyframe. So we want to start from 0 this time. So let's type 0 in here. And now this text is fading in, just like that. But we can do one more thing, and we can just make this text slide in from the left side. So we can add another track, and it'll be transform. Create another keyframe on the first second. So we can expand this transform because we only need to take care of this translation. If you expand this translation, we have the X and Y. So as for here, we will just create a keyframe. And we'll go back to our first frame. And for the X, we can type, for example, -400. So it will move to the left of the screen, just like that. And now you can preview this animation. It will look just like that. And I think this looks pretty cool. Yeah, I really like that. So let's just click in the empty space so we exit the animation editing. And by default, we also need to change the objective render opacity to be 0. And one last thing, this text should also be a variable. So let's click as variable and we can name this objective text. Okay, because later we will change that text, obviously. So now we can go back to graph and go to event graph, because here we can create new custom event, and this will be named set object, because later in the game when we collect all the pages we would like to change the objective text to something else. So we can just grab our objective text and set text and make this an input of this event. Compile and save. Right, so now let's actually use this objective. We can actually create an input for the objective, so we can go back to main, inputs, here into actions, and we can right click, input action, ia underscore objective. Now let's go to the EMC player where we need to add this objective, search for objective, and I think that tab will be perfect option for objective. So now let's just close this and go back to BP player. We need to find some empty space, for example here, and let's get our input action objective. Okay, so when we press the tab button, we want to create new custom event actually, which will be called display objective, and we can call this event from here to display objective, and we can comment this out, objective input. And as for the display objective event, it will be really simple. We will just play the animation. But before playing the animation, we also need to make sure that this objective opacity is equal to 0. So it's completely hidden, and then we can play animation. So let's just get main UI reference, get objective, and get render opacity. Let's just organize this a little bit more. And if this render opacity is equal to 0, then we can play the fade in animation. So let's just copy these two because we need a reference to the objective. Or actually, we need just a reference to objective animation. And here, just play animation. As simple as that. And we also need to connect this main UI reference as a target. So now this animation will play and our objective will appear. But after 3 seconds, we can add a little delay. After 3 seconds, we want to hide it bug again, and we don't need to create two different animations for the same thing. We can just reverse the previous animation, so that's exactly what we will do. Let's just get main UI reference, objective, and render opacity. So we need to make sure that the render opacity is equal to 1 in this case, so this text is fully visible, then we can make it disappear. If this is true, let's do a branch here. We can play the animation. So let's duplicate these nodes. And here, just make sure that this animation is set to reverse. Okay. We can comment this play objective animation and move it somewhere here. Okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see how it looks. If I press play, now I press tab, you can see this little animation is appearing, and you can see our formatted text works because it says that we found 0 out of 0 pages because we don't have any pages in this world. But if I will just go to interactable actors and I will grab 2 pages, for example, and I will press play and now press tab, you can see pages found 0 out of 2 because we have 2 pages that we need to still find.